Okay. It says
Okay.
recording.
All right.
Hello, everyone. We're just about to get started, so thanks for joining us. If you have any questions today, just type them into the chat box, and we'll try to get to them as soon as we can. I'm going to be both filming and answering questions, so it might take me a minute to get to your questions, but we'll do our best. And I'm going to turn the camera over to Marcin, the head beekeeper here at the Garfield Park Conservatory, to let you know what we're going to be doing today. Let's see how I turn the camera. Okay.
Got it?
Yep.
Hi, everyone. So we're going to inspect these two hives. Weather should be good enough to allow us to do it. So from this hive, we're probably going to just take a quick look at it, harvest honey, maybe take a quick peek into the brood nest, see how the queen is doing, how the colonies, what size they are, what they may need or may not need. And then we'll go to this hive and harvest some honey. And if the bees allow it and the weather allows it, we're gonna do a mite count on it to see how healthy they're doing. So we're about to start. I got my smoker going. So it's just started with some paper, get the fire going, then put in some dry grass to give it some kindling, then give it some burlap bags, some coffee bags, and then on top of it, it's just a bunch of green stuff that's got some moisture in it to cool down the smoke. So I don't want the smoke to be too hot. I don't want it to be burned. I don't want it to be bees. So it's all in my hand. It's gonna feel cool for the bees. There we go. So this is, well, all of our hives are over winter. We haven't had to buy bees for 3 seasons now. So this is one of our overwinter hives that we're gonna check. So is the other one. It overwintered in just this setup where you see the insulation around it, and then this was added on as the season progressed. So we're gonna probably harvest honey from. Well, my goal is to harvest honey from this box, see what's in those boxes, and then replace those with empty frames so the bees can still utilize the flow that's about to happen at some point. We are not on a flow whatsoever here with our bees in the conservatory. There's the bees are, you can see bees flying around me. The bees are sort of in a defensive mode. They're not stingy or anything, but they are in a defensive mode where we haven't had rain for 7 days, so there's not a lot of nectar coming in. All this honey that we're going to be harvesting today has been made towards the mid to end of May to first week of June, give or take. For the past 10 days, at least 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, there hasn't really been much nectar coming in. There's been nectar coming in enough to sustain them, but not enough to put away a surplus that we can harvest at some point. I'm just gonna give them a puff of smoke in the bottom, just to let them know I'm coming. First thing I look at is when I take the cover off, I look at their behavior. If you run my hand over it and they're not jumping at me, they're probably not in a very defensive mode. So, but if I took the cover off and they were coming at me, I would put my bell on and start smoking them more. Just give them more smoke to calm them down. That is getting heavy. Flip it backwards. Looking for queen cells. There should not be any swarming going on right now. Our prime swarm season is kind of Mother's Day weekend through Father's Day weekend. That doesn't mean they won't swarm if they're running out of room, but it's not for reproductive purposes that they will be swarming right now. I'm gonna get this box off too. Do the same thing. I don't see any queen cells. This is actually all filled with honey that I can see. Wow. Okay. That is surprising. So A little bit of history on this hive. Yeah, they're not jumping at me. So like I said, overwintered. Overwintered. So it was started last July with a queen that we raised and gave it some brood, gave it some bees to start the colony. We had to feed it going into winter, but it survived on its, the winter just fine. And we haven't had to feed it in spring, and it grew on its own. But actually, at some point in May, I think first weekend of May, give or take, I don't remember the exact date, but the first nice weekend we had in May when the temperatures were in the 60s or above, I actually took some frames of brood from here, from this hive, and gave it to this hive. I'll talk about it later when I inspect this hive. But I took some frames of kept brood from this hive to slow down the growth of this colony and to speed up the growth of that colony. Not that they were doing better on its own, but I just wanted to boost them up and make them stronger quicker. I'll talk about that when I get to the hive. So I did take away some brood from this hive, and then towards the end of May, when we made our splits, I took away more brood and gave it to some of the other nukes that we had hidden in the back over there where we made our split. Yeah. That's heavy, so I expect this to be honey too. Yeah, it looks like to be honey.
Marcin, we have a question.
Yep.
Did we lose any hives over the winter this year?
Yeah, so we had 16 out of 20 to survive the winter. So we did lose 6, 4 here and 2 at Lincoln Park Conservatory. So our past overwintering success over the past 3 winters is 16, 10, and 12. That's 26, 36 out of 22. 36 out of 44 hives over the past 3 winters is our wintering success. So we're running at about 75% survivorship rate. This is part of the reason why we don't have to buy bees replacements, because we can make up our own. We can make up our losses from our own hives. So they are actually backfilling this. This is called backfilling the brood nest. So this area right here, at some point had brood. And they are, I don't know if you can see with the camera, but all this liquid, that's nectar that they're just backfilling in there because it's coming in and they are able to store it as excess.
We have another question, Marcin, asking about the insulation that's on this hive and whether you leave the insulation on year round or just during the winter.
This is the first time that I'm leaving it year round. So if the pandemic wasn't happening, so we have a volunteer beekeeping program here at the conservatory where volunteers help out with the hives. They manage the hives. You know, they will be doing inspections, harvesting, extracting, all that kind of stuff. They will be part of their duties. So this year, as part of the volunteer program, what I was going to do, we were going to set up about half of our hives and leave the insulation on them, and half of the hives don't leave insulation. And then as we check our hives, we would keep track to see if the hives, if there's a difference in brood production, honey production, and any other metric that we could measure with insulation versus no insulation. My assumption is that insulation helps year round, not just winter. I don't think it's as important in winter months. I think it's important in spring months when there's a lot of brood being raised. And I think it does help buffer in hot months when there's sun beating on it. I think it helps buffer and maintain the temperature of the brood nest a little bit better. So my assumption was that, yes, leaving insulation on would have been beneficial to the hives, but we're going to test it out with half of the hives with insulation and half of them not. So this is the reason why it's on here. Part of the reason is because I'm lazy and I haven't taken it off. And part of the reason is because I want to see if they are actually doing better with it. So we got some brood in here. Showing up. So this stuff right here, that's all drone brood. Drones are the males of the colony. They're bigger. They require more space to develop in. I'm trying to find a drone on the. So this right here is a drone. I don't know if you can see it, Kristen. Underneath my, that's a drone. So you can see he's bigger than the females, the workers in the colony. So drones don't do much. Don't do much. Their main purpose is for reproductive purposes, but they don't forage, they don't defend, they don't care, they don't build, comb. They reproductive reasons are the main reason why the colony grows them. So there's a few queen caps on the bottom here, but they're empty. Without looking at them, I can tell they're empty because they're not getting any activity from the bees whatsoever. If there was a larva or an egg in there, the bees will be popping their head in there and keeping it warm, feeding it, caring for it however they need to. So I'm going to destroy them just so next time when they build them, I know they're fresh, so I'm not confused. But queen caps don't bother me. It's queen cells that are more worrisome. And queen cell is the minute the queen lays an egg in there, there's a larva or royal jelly. There's an intent to use that cell for to raise a new queen for either replacement or for swarming purposes. So I don't think they're replacing the queen. This queen is not even a year old yet, so she should survive the winter as it is. So I don't think they're replacing her. If they were gonna raise queen cells, it'd be more for swarming purposes. And like I said, it's not for. I just squeezed the bee. It's not for reproductive purposes at this point. I think it's just because they're running out of room. So this is another case of trying to find her, if I can find her.
Find the queen?
Yeah. I don't think she's going to be here. I don't see a lot of open brood in here, so she's probably down below. But, so bees don't like to be touched. You can move them out of your way if you just kind of pet them. They don't like to be touched. They're not dogs that way, or cats. This is all cat brood, so these are all future bees that are going to be emerging within the next day to 12 days from now. I don't know how old they are. They look older just looking at it. So they're probably going to be coming out within the next week. But that's a new population of bees coming out. All right, I don't see her on this side. I don't know if you can tell, Kristen, but right here, there's some older larvae in the cells. Maybe hard to tell.
I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully. But so bees go through metamorphosis. They start their life as an egg. After 3 days, that egg hatches into a larva. It says larva for workers for 6 days. On day 9, that larva turns into a pupa. This is what we're seeing. So this is called pupa. Underneath here, they open larva. And then on day 21 or so, an adult bee emerges and spends her life going to different housework chores as a nurse bee, as a builder, as a groomer, as an undertaker, as a guard bee. And then 21 days or so after she emerges, roughly, she becomes a forager. And these are the ones that you see flying in and out of the hive. I'm gonna move that a bit around. I'm gonna put these 2 brood frames together and then put the nectar frame on the outside of them. Since I'm already here, I might as well look at the whole box. Normally I wouldn't. All right, so this bee right here, she's got propolis on her back legs. I don't know if you can see. That's not pollen, that's actually propolis. Yeah. So this is propolis stuff. So propolis is basically tree resin that the bees collect. They bring it to the hive. They coat every wooden surface with it. It's got antimicrobial and antibacterial properties, but they also use it to seal any kind of a crack where there's air gaps or light shining through that they don't want it to. So they bring it in the same way they bring in pollen on their back legs. That bee that is buzzing my head is just not giving up. There's actually more open brood here. Able to see. I'm gonna move the bees out of the way. there's more open brood in here. Good looking larvae, well fed. And some eggs. It's hard to spot eggs, especially with a camera. But even on its own, it's hard to spot eggs.
Marcin, we've got some questions about people's hives. Do you want to do those now or at the end?
No, let's go.
So Kathy is wondering, this is her first year having a hive, and she's giving them sugar water right now, and they're still taking about a quart every day or two.
Yeah.
And she's wondering if she should stop, so she can switch to a screen top now that it's hot out, and is also curious about pollen patties.
Let's go take a walk.
Okay.
So what we do here, when we feed our bees, when this hive is getting fed, this hive is getting fed, there's some hives in the back that are getting fed too. They're getting fed because they're about 3 to 4 weeks old, so they need a little bit of help to get going. So when we feed our hives, we always put food coloring in our sugar water. So this got a red dye. So if I feed them and I start seeing red, sugar water or green or blue, that's the 3 colors that we use in the comb, that tells me they're not using it, they're starting to store it. And that tells me it's time to stop feeding them because there's enough resources in the area that they don't need sugar water. So my suggestion to Katie would be to put some food dye in it, just whatever you get from a grocery store. Doesn't have to be a lot. We put like 2-3 drops per gallon of sugar water, and it's enough to give it a tint, and it starts showing up in the hive. Like I said, we're not on the flow here at the conservatory. I don't know where Katie is. In her area may be experiencing a lack of flow too, so the bees are taking it. But my guess is the minute there's a good flow happening, they will not take sugar water at the rate they're taking it right now. I would imagine they would stop. As far as pollen patties go, yeah, this lack of rain, there's not a lot of pollen coming in either. So to me, protein is important. So if she wants to keep feeding them and they're taking it, there's no downside to feeding them pollen patties. So we're not feeding, well, I shouldn't say that. We're feeding about 3 of our hives with pollen patties right now. And they're not full pollen patties. If you take the full pollen patty, we cut it in half, and then we even cut it in half, and that's about the amount that I feed them every 3 days, give or take. And that seems to be, so they take about a quarter of a regular pollen patty every 3 days. Or at least it's gone every 3 days when I look at it. So the minute when they stop taking it, or I see more pollen coming into the hives, I will not give them any more. They do prefer natural stuff over artificial stuff too. But it's not a bad idea to give them pollen patties. Protein is important, and it will promote their growth, or at least sustain their growth.
We had another question referring back to the bee that had the propolis on her legs. Do bees carry propolis in the same baskets that they carry their pollen on?
Yes. Pollen they can actually carry on all of their bodies. Like sometimes you see it on their thorax, on their head. Propolis they only carry on the back legs, where they would carry. Yeah. I mean, there may be some on their proboscis when they.
Oh yeah.
So they may carry some on the proboscis, but overall majority is on the back legs.
All right. Let's see. We've got 2 more questions about folks' hives. One of them is from Monica. She said that half of her hives swarmed, and there's capped queen cells and about 10,000 bees remaining.
Yeah.
And she's wondering what the likelihood of the hive surviving is and what she can do to help it survive.
So they'll raise a queen. That's not a problem. That bees have done this for millions of years. They know how to raise a queen. They will raise a queen. That queen will emerge. She will go on a mating flight. The mating flight is the unknown. It's the one you can't control. So whether she comes back from a mating flight is chances are she will, but who knows? And how well she mates with the drones in the area. How well she mates with the drones in the area is also questionable. So, yeah, I don't have a, I don't have a textbook answer I can give you. What I can tell you is our experience here at the conservatory. For every 10 queens that we raise, 7 of them will not come back from mating. We're running at about a 30-35% success rate for our queens. So if we want to raise 10 queens over a season, we have to raise equivalent of 30 queens, because I know 20 of them will not come back from mating, or will come back poorly mated, to the point where we have to replace them within the first 2 to 4 weeks after they come back. For some reason, here in the conservatory, queens just don't come back from mating. We lose, like I said, up to 70% of them on their mating flights. This is what's happening with some of our hives. Some of our hives have swarmed, and well, 3 of our hives have swarmed that I'm aware of, and only 1 of the queens is back. The other 2, if I don't find them next week on Tuesday, it's going to be too late. The math just doesn't add up. At that point, I'm going to assume that the queen is lost, and I'm going to have to either give them a queen, or I'm going to have to combine them with other bees to utilize the leftover bees, because they will not be able to raise a queen without resources. So I don't think I answered Kathy's question or Monica's questions, but raising a queen is something that bees do on their own naturally. If you want to give them a mated queen, it will guarantee that she will not have to go on a mating flight. The bees will more than likely accept that queen, and it will speed up the whole process by about 2 weeks. As far as brood goes, the mated queen will start laying about 2 weeks earlier, then going through the whole process and letting a queen go on the mating flight, come back, take her time, and start laying eggs. So you're getting about 2 weeks, and you're getting a guarantee that you have a queen in a hive. There's no guarantee that they will accept her, and there's no guarantee that the queen will be a good, viable queen down the line.
Then we have another question. This is the last question about specific hives from William. It says, I added a blank frame with a small starter strip. The bees drew complete drone brood cells. Is that common? Now I'm going through my second complete round of hatching of drones on this frame, which is a deep. Any suggestions?
So, most foundation is worker sized, which is smaller. Drones are bigger. So given a choice, bees will build drones on a single frame instead of having them scattered on multiple frames throughout the hive. So it's no surprise that they build a drone frame. If you cut it out, you can cut out that drone comb as a way of controlling viral mites, because mites prefer to reproduce in the drones over worker brood. You can use that, but chances are if you give it back to them, they will build drones again and again and again. They need drones, and you cannot stop colony from not having drones. It's in their DNA to produce drones. So, right. So there's some honey in here. It's mostly capped. 98% capped honey frame. I'm assuming once I get back to the office, I'm going to test the moisture content in the open cells here, but I'm assuming it's going to be around 19%. Same on this side. She was in my ear. I'm gonna go take a quick look at the other ones. Just from looking at it, I can see all of these are capped, so I'm probably gonna take all of them out, shake the bees off, and then put 5 frames in its place so the bees can utilize it and store nectar when we get our flow. Yeah, all of these are. Just looking for the queen to make sure she's not on here. She shouldn't be on here, but never say never. There's actually a bee with pollen on her. I don't know if you can see it. Yellow pollen on her back leg.
Oh yeah, let's see if I can get it.
And pollen is what they use to feed the young larvae. And the young nurse bees also ingest pollen. So this bee right here, I probably spilled some honey on her when I was taking the frames out.
Which bee?
Right here. You can see how there's bees around her and just cleaning her up, licking her up. with their tongues out biscuits. So I probably, when I was pulling it out, probably ripped some honey cells open and she got caught in the probably gonna get some comments. I'm not using a brush. That's okay. You can keep bees however you want to keep bees. This is not what I recommend people do. This is just how we do things. When I say we, I mean me.
Monica is wondering if you ever use a queen excluder.
Yes, we are using on this hive. I'll explain it in a minute. Normally we don't use queen excluders, but we are using it on some this year. Our past experience with queen excluder hasn't been a great one, but this year I'll give it a try and see what happens. Basically, I'm just going to repeat the process of harvesting frames in this hive. And the goal for this hive is at the end of the honey flow season. So once there's no more summer honey coming in, we're going to split this hive into two, at least two, and make two hives out of it, because I don't want a hive this big going into winter. All I need is just these 3 deep boxes. That's what they survive on. That's what I need. So, anything excess, split, give them a queen that we raise, or might have to buy, who knows. And then make 2 colonies out of it. And that's going to happen sometime, hard to tell, but usually mid-July to end of July. First week of August is the latest we'll do it.
So Marcin, if you were telling someone else how to do this, you would just recommend using a brush instead of your hand?
No, I'd still use your fingers. I would shake them off, and that brush does not feel very gentle on my skin. The bee brush that is commercially available does not feel very gentle on my skin. So I figure if I don't feel right using it, I don't want to use it on bees. But there's nothing wrong with using a brush, no, obviously. A lot of our volunteers do. Taking a quick look for the queen. She shouldn't be here, but 2 or 3 shakes and you get 90% of them off. And then you just with your fingertips. Or if you feel comfortable, you can grab them. Like that one. She'll survive. She just took off. She's probably gonna come back and
sting you.
Yeah. She'll remember that. She'll probably bring friends too. And yes, it hurts every time you get stung. Doesn't matter how many times you get stung. And yes, I did wash my hands before coming out here.
Someone asked, it looks like the bees are really calm. Are you getting stung at all?
Not yet. I will get stung when I open up this hive. I guarantee it.
Also, Monica popped in the box that she uses a bundle of long grass and a turkey feather to herd her bees.
Yeah, that's way better than using a bee brush. Yes. Good for Monica. All right, so I'm just gonna pull out 5 frames that I can use to replace the one that just took out.
Folks are also wondering if there is anything particular about the box that you're putting the frames in, or
so it's just we get it from Container Store, and I'm not but it's just a weather tight that it's got a seal on it, so no insects can get in there. It's relatively environment tight. So, you know, if I store it, obviously if I store it outside, humidity can get in there, but it will keep rain out. So I will not store it outside. I mean, I will take it out inside in the office, but it just provides a clean, a relatively tight environment where my biggest issue is ants getting in there and taking the honey out. So. Let's see what we got. I'm just using frames that we used last year for honey extraction. That have been cleaned out by bees, and I'm just putting them back in the hive for this year. Here, now I'm gonna put back those boxes. I did not hear a crunch. But if you're gonna do beekeeping, at some point you're gonna kill some bees as you inspect your hive. So as long as it's not a queen, you're doing, it's part of the game. I'm gonna take the middle frame and see what's happening on it.
Someone is curious about testing for varroa and how you test and when you test. Is that something we're gonna maybe try to do?
Yeah, if the weather holds up and we still have time, we're gonna test on the other hive, and if the bees allow us to.
Okay.
So, but normally we test every, if we have regular volunteer shifts here, we would test every 2 weeks per hive. So we don't, varroa is our biggest enemy, and we definitely take it seriously. So we would test every 2 weeks.
And you test using the sugar roll, right?
Roll, and then, so let's say we did 6 sugar rolls in a row. The next one would probably be alcohol wash, just for accuracy. See if we're doing, if we're getting an exact count. So this is another. Most of these are full of honey, so I could harvest these. I'm not gonna yet. We'll see what they do with this box. If they start filling up this box with nectar, probably will harvest those frames too. But my goal is, if we'll see what they do with this box and how the flow is. But my goal is to leave those as is, and when we make our splits in another month or so, this will be the winter food for those colonies, which means I won't have to feed them sugar water going into winter. So I might prefer bees overwinter on honey than sugar water. There's nothing wrong with sugar water for feeding. It prevents starvation. But we've had better results overwintering bees on honey than overwintering them on sugar water. That's just our own personal experience. This one's pretty heavy too, so I'm assuming it's the same thing. I'm not gonna look into it. No. And I had to put a strip around this because, well, this hive is heavy enough right now that I think it will be fine. But back in March, when at the end of March we had those high winds, like 60, 70 per mile hour wind gusts, we had 2 hives where that single nuke boxes. We had 2 hives sitting on that stand. They were not in any way strapped, and when those wind guns knocked both of them over, and it was 2 days before I could come back and look at them, and one of them survived, and the other one, the queen was lost, so I had to combine them into a single colony. So the stronger nuke boxes, the taller ones, just for safety precautions, I'm strapping them. Also, all of our hives that will go into winter, because the new ones don't yet, but all of our hives have top insulation on them year round. This may not go year round. Some of them will not get at all, but every single hive we have here, doesn't matter if it's a 10 frame nuke, whatever, all of them have top insulation on their year round.
Doug was asking, he heard that the sugar roll was the one method for doing a mite check.
Yeah.
It was the alcohol wash that's the other method, just to make sure that we're getting accurate counts.
Yes. The sugar roll, if you're not doing it right, you may not be recovering all of the mites that are in it. So for educational purposes, for volunteers, and to assure that we're doing it accurately, we will put through alcohol wash. Not every single one, but every 6 to 8 sugar roll we do. But most of them, sugar rolls is the ones that we rely on.
We have a question. Do you use any mesh grid to separate honey frames from brood frames?
Queen exploders?
Yeah.
In general, no, that's not our standard practice. But this year we are using it on some of the hives. I think on 2 hives we're using Queen exploders this year.
Also, we got to note that it's a little bit hard to hear, so I'll try to keep it closer. Okay. I know there's a lot of background noise here too with trains and such.
Okay. I'm gonna get a drink of water, and we'll go open up this one.
Sounds
so
good.
This one will be a little bit
feistier.
Yeah, I'll probably have to put a bell on.
While we wait for Marcin, we'll peek at him coming in.
This up. I'm gonna use a fresh hive tool. So one of the things we do here is, and this is not, I think it's an overkill, but it's something we do, is that every time we inspect a different hive, we get a fresh, clean hive tool, just to minimize the risk of transmitting disease from between hives. So let's say if that hive was diseased with something, and I'm mainly talking about European foulbrood or American foulbrood diseases. The spores I could pick up on my hive, I can pick them on my coating too, but I could pick them out on my hive tool, and by doing multiple inspections with the same hive tool, I could increase the chance of transmitting the disease. So every time we inspect a new hive, we get a fresh tool for it. All right, so this hive overwintered in the 2 boxes that you don't see underneath the insulation. That's how we went for winter. That's how it overwintered. Beginning of May, I wanted to make this hive strong and make it artificially strong by management and manipulation. I also wanted to keep the hive that we just inspected, this hive and some of our other dogs from swarming. So what I did was I took away frames of kept brood from those hives. So from this hive here, from the one we just inspected, found a frame of mostly kept brood, shook off most of the bees on it, make sure that the queen was not being transferred, and put them in this box here. So I added this box at the time, and then put in frames of kept brood that probably, if I remember correctly, at least 6, maybe even 7 frames worth of kept brood was added to this hive. And then just fill out the space with empty frames. 3 or 4 extra frames that were just empty. I gave, at the same time, I put on the queen excluder, and then I added these 2 boxes at the same time. So that was May, I want to say May 3rd. That was a Saturday, May 3rd, that's when I did it. It was definitely the first Saturday in May when I did it. I remember that. So we did it then. And then about 3 weeks after that, I just came back to make sure that the queen, somehow didn't get lost or anything like that. So all those bees from this box have emerged. By that time, they have combined with the colony down below here, and they just made a super populous colony at the time. And that's when we're hitting our spring flow. So dandelions and clover, like usually we don't get a clover flow till right now. That's when it happens towards the end of June and July. This year we got it end of May and beginning of June. So all this area here and everywhere, you can see still some clover around the compost bin. But it was loaded with clover, white sweet clover. The bees were just on it. I've never seen it like that. So the harvesting is probably as well. Some fruit trees that were blooming at the time, clover, dandelions. Those might have been blooming at the time. This is we've never harvested honey this early, or we've never had kept honey this early in the season in our hives. So I gotta be in my bell.
I see her. She's in the fold.
Yeah, that's okay. Also, I should mention that this bell, it's mosquito netting, but it's got holes in it, so it's not the most secure one. We should start a GoFundMe campaign. Give Marcin the veil.
You wouldn't wear it anyway.
No, I wouldn't. This is just so the bees don't get in my ears. I don't mind getting stung. I just hate it when they go in my ears.
There's a question about your insulation.
Yeah.
Do you just use styrofoam, or is there anything else that you would recommend?
Whatever I have available. Ideally, this is what I would use. It's foil bags. On the other side, it's just silver foil. This is what I would use. At least an inch thickness, inch and a half would be better. But I had some styrofoam that I just cut into size and use that. But if I had my choice, this is what I would be using, this kind of insulation. I think we got it from people. Okay. So on this one, Kristen, I'll try to speak louder, and if you want to stay farther away.
Okay.
I'm not saying you're gonna get stung. I'm just saying if there's a hive here that we have that I could predict that people will get stung by, it's this one.
Okay.
So I think part of it is that they're populous. They have a lot of foragers right now, but there's not a lot of stuff for the foragers to do, so they're just looking for a fight. And that's usually us.
And just so you know, Marcin, it's 11:12.
Okay, wow. All right, so we may not do a honey pool on this one camera. We'll just do mic on it. Okay.
So we're just gonna do, if you couldn't hear Marcin, we're just gonna do a mite count on this one, since we don't have a lot of time left.
So you said I added these boxes on May 3rd. I added this one about 2 weeks ago, and there's very little weight to it, so we're not really utilizing it just yet. Yeah, and there's very little bee activity in there too. So I'm gonna pull one of these frames out because I know they're ready to be harvested, and we'll harvest them. Let them do it today, later today. I'll harvest them next week. But yeah, they're ready to be harvested. Yeah, they're jumpy. Yeah, so most of the frames are ready to be harvested. That's all fresh wax. And I expect that to be the case with the lower box too. So this is the one that we did use a Queen Explorer on. Yep, they're getting louder. That one?
Stung?
Yeah. She got into the hole. They do respond to smoke, so it's not a overly aggressive behavior. It's a defensive mechanism. It's in my hair now. Yeah, that one's full too. She feels heavier than the one I just lifted.
Just getting a picture of the excluder.
Yeah, so the idea is that this keeps the queen. The queen cannot pass through the workers, and some of the drones might be able to. Might be able to, but the queen will not be able to. So I'm actually gonna So I know what's in this box because I've looked at this hive probably about a week ago, maybe a little bit more. This is full of honey. We're never gonna harvest from this. This is gonna be their winter food when the time comes. But this is full of honey, and this is what I call the widow maker. Because this, if I grab it wrong, it will kill me. The weight of it will just. Man.
How much does that weigh, you think?
80 pounds. 90 pounds. Easy. I'm looking for queen caps, queen cells. I don't see anything. So I'm gonna try and find a frame of open brood and do a mite count. So as I get closer to the brood nest, this is where most of the nurse bees are, and their behavior will be different than the behavior of older bees and foragers, which are in the top boxes right now. So I'm still gonna get activity around me, but I should not get as much activity as I did when I dug into those boxes.
Marcin, we have a question. Should the queen excluder always go between the supers and the medium boxes?
You can put it whatever you want to restrict the queen at. So if you want to keep it in a single box, you can put it over there. If you want to give her access to a super, you can put it above a super. But it's a restrictor for the queen's movement. So usually that's where people will put it to keep the queen out of the super. So when you extract honey, you know you're not taking any frames that might have brood in it. And I can see eggs in here.
We've got a question from one of our beekeeping volunteers here at the conservatory.
Who's that?
Margaret.
Margaret?
Yep. Hi, Margaret. Over the past 3 years, when we've overwintered bees, it seems like we've had fewer mite problems and needed fewer insecticide treatments.
Very good point.
Do you attribute this to overwintering and not introducing new packages, or mostly due to good management practices like splits, robbing prevention, and keeping our bees and hives healthy in general?
Good job, Margaret. Everything. I think it's not introducing different genetics is helpful. That's a frame kept brood. I'm not going to take it here. But I think when we raise our own queens, selecting from the stag that tends to keep the lowest mite count all the time has really pushed us towards needing minimal treatment. We still have to treat our hives. Not every single hive needs a treatment, but if a single one needs a treatment, we're going to treat all of them in the apiary regardless. You know, my first year here, when I started, we had to treat our hives 3 times a year just to keep them alive into the winter, not through the winter. So our first treatment would have been about a week ago, then in July, and then in September would have been our 3rd treatment. And that was just to keep the mites at bay. For the past 3 years, especially for the past 2 years, our treatments have been done in September, and that has really worked well for us. But I think splitting them helps us. Using good genetics helps us, and not bringing in packages. Not that there's anything wrong with packages, not saying that, but just growing your own seems to work for us. So, and you know, I always say, if you got a method that works for you in beekeeping, stick with it. All right, so I'm looking for a frame of open brood larvae. I got one here, so there she is. I'm gonna, of course, that's the one that I don't wanna take from. I just saw her. There she is. So there's the queen underneath mine. Okay, this is one of our queens that we raised last year. You see she's got a little bit of darker color in it, so we do prefer Carnorian type bees. They tend to be a little bit darker. They tend to, they just tend to do better as far as wintering goes. So I'm gonna put her back in and find another frame that I can do a micro on.
And I think I've gotten all the questions people have typed in so far, but if I didn't answer your question, if you want to resubmit it so it comes up at the bottom, then I will see it.
All right, so I got a good frame. I might get enough bees from here. If not, I'll get it from another frame too. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm just gonna make sure that the queen's not on here. She shouldn't be because we saw her on another frame. I'm just gonna take a quick glance. I don't see here. I think I'm gonna get enough bees. So the point is, I'm trying to get 300 bees roughly into this jar. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna run it down the back of the down the back of down the side of the comb, and the bees will just fall into the jar. It's not much easier than trying to scoop them up this way. I've tried it both ways, and I'm gonna make it look easy. It's not the easiest thing to do. It does take practice. So the sooner you start doing mite counts, the better you get at it at a time when it actually counts in July, August, and September. So here we go. So I'm just lightly touching the surface of the comb, and the bees are falling in it. I'm doing the same thing on the other side of the. I'm trying to get to about 300 bees. 4,000.
Top.
I put a top on it so the bees cannot escape. I'll put this back. I'll take one of these frames here. Now the queen might have moved because she was on this frame. She might have moved somewhere else, so I'm gonna have to do a quick scan for her again. I think that one was mostly kept. It's got some open groups. This one here too. Oh man. There it is. I was looking for the lid. Yeah, I got more than 300 bees in there. So they're flying around me, but they're not agitated to bring this thing in me. I don't like that. I get it. I wouldn't like that either. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put them through a sugar roll, and then as they sit in the jar for about a minute, minute and a half or so, I'm gonna put this hive back together. The way it's supposed to be. All right, so I got about roughly about 300 bees in there, give or take. So that's what it looks like about. I'm gonna give them about 2 spoonfuls of powdered sugar into that.
We've got a question from someone too. They're just like noticing here. I'll try to get this at the same time. That a lot of their honey seems to be super light, and the caps of the honey are super light. I think just the new wax.
Yeah,
and
no
if
wax.
that's normal.
And yeah, that's normal. I mean, usually the earlier season honey tends to be lighter than the later season honey. So that's quite normal. Yeah, like spring honey, dandelion, clover, black locust, fruit tree honey tends to be on the lighter scale. Quite normal. Also, sugar water honey will also be lighter in color. So if you're feeding them sugar water and they're making honey out of it, it can be that too. All right, so I put about 2 spoonfuls of sugar, powdered sugar in there, roughly give or take. So the idea is you want to agitate the bees to the point where they raise their body temperature. When they raise their body temperature, the mites that are on those bees cannot withstand that heat and they lose grip. And the powdered sugar gets into the pads of the mites, and the mites cannot reattach themselves to the bees. So we're trying to dislodge the mites from the bodies of the bees. We're not agitating the mites, we're agitating the bees, which will in turn make the mites lose their grip. So I just want to get an even coverage of the sugar among the bees, and then just leave them on the side until I close up the hive. So give them a quick smoke here. So they go back into the. I don't squish the queen if she has a. Man, that's a little maker. Whoa.
You did?
Yeah, and then like, how are we on time?
We've got about 5 minutes to go. I'm checking to make sure I got everyone's questions.
All right, so this plate right here, I don't know if you can see, but there's some leftover honey here. So we had a frame that, when I was going through the frames, I broke it off in the middle of the frame, and there was some honey in it, so I just put it on this plate here, and I just put it on top of the hive for the bees to clean out, but they're not really cleaning it up.
Looks like some of them are stuck in it.
Yeah. So hopefully they'll clean it up. I don't know if it does not, because I got to put the piece in there. All right. So they've been in there. Now we're gonna shake out the mites. So you're shaking, and there's no more sugar coming out. So, and you don't want to go like this because you're not doing anything. you have to put some muscle into it, to the point where you're not bouncing the bees around and killing them, but they are jumping up and down, and the mites are coming out of here. So I do expect to find some mites, no more than 6. And the reason why I expect to find some mites is because, as I just told you, about 6 weeks ago, I transferred frames of pet brood into this hive, which means by transferring pet brood, I'm transferring mites that are underneath that pet brood right here too. So I'm adding mites onto this hive that would then not naturally occur in there. So I do expect higher mite load, but I don't expect it to be above a threshold of 9 mites per 300 bees process. I'll put them in the shade so they don't overheat now. All right, so we got mites in here. I can see a few already in there. This is just water bottle. I'm just gonna spray and see how many mites we get. I see 2. I see 3. So there's one in the middle that's floating, one towards here. Can you see it, Kristen?
Can you all see it? Maybe somebody give me a yes in the chat box.
So there's one floating definitely towards the center of the.
Yeah.
There's one.
Maybe I can bring it in the shade here.
Yeah.
That might be easier.
Let me get more water so it's okay.
All right. So there's one right there. See if I can get it. Oh man. Well, there's one on the side. You can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's 3 that I saw in there. So.
That's 3 out of 300.
Yeah,
so 1 out of 100.
Yeah, 1%. 3% is considered deadly. I mean, 1% is, the lower the number, the better. But I'm not surprised it's 3 right now. It's given the management and the manipulations this hive went through, that's totally reasonable. Yep, 2 months. Dump it out. Now this is the coolest part. I'm actually gonna take this box off so you can see, get a better view. As I release the cracking.
The ghost bees.
Yeah, this is what we call ghost bees. So, and you can do the same thing with alcohol wash. So instead of powdered sugar, you give them alcohol, rubbing alcohol. You will kill the bees, but you will dislodge the mites and do it in a quicker manner too. So. And now we can see how many bees are not moving after this. So there's always going to be some collateral damage, but I see every single one of them is moving so far.
That one has so much sugar on her. Her friend is helping her though.
Also trying to see if I got the queen by mistake. So there's one that's barely moving. And they maybe just overheated, so it takes them a while to pull themselves off. So that one's probably damaged. I can see that she's just stumbling. So yeah, some of them will get damaged, but we're doing it for the benefit of the colony. So let's say if I recovered 10 mites right now, I would have to treat them, because if I didn't, in another month, that would be 17 mites, and then we'll start spreading to other hives and infecting not just our hives, but in the community too. And that's definitely something we don't want to do.
Great. And it's 11:30 on the dot.
Any last questions before we
Yeah, does anyone have any more questions? Let's see. Thank you everyone who let me know that you could see it. There are a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So yes, these are varroa mites that we are looking for.
Yeah.
Not a dumb question. We're all learning. And so what threshold do you treat at? When are you worried?
3%.
3%.
It's not even the 3% that worried. It's so like I said, we do our mite check on a regular basis here every 2 weeks. I haven't been consistent with them this year just because I'm not here as frequently, and sometimes when I am here, the weather doesn't cooperate that I cannot do this. But on a regular basis, when we did check every single hive on a 2-week basis, 3%, but it's the spikes. If we went, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and then we jump to 7, that scares me. Even though we're below the 3% threshold, that jump scares me. If we go 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, that doesn't bother me at all. So, but overall 3% threshold, so no more than 9 mites in a sample of 300, or the big jumps. 1 to 2 is fine, but when I go from 2 to 5, that's scary.
Let's see. Trying to get all of your questions. Someone is wondering if it's okay to feed bees frames of honey to supplement their diet by placing it in front of the hive and remove it at the end of the day.
No, I wouldn't. You're encouraging other bees to come and check it out and zoom in on the hive, other insects. So if you're gonna feed, do it internally into the hive. So I would. This is not something that I would
recommend.
Yeah.
And Kathy, I see that your hand is raised, but I don't know on the phone here how to get a question from you. So if you have a question, if you could type it in the Q&A or the chat box, I'll be able to get it. A couple of people have said thank you, and they're wondering if this will happen again.
We may do it again. Yeah, it's yeah, we could do it another month or so. Maybe when we do a split or something like that, or checking on some other hives, ones that are not buzzing around me all the time. I'm afraid to take a sip of water because.
Let's see. Oh, there's a question. We are recording this, so I think we're gonna put it up somewhere.
Yeah, I think that once it's edited out and it'll probably be. I don't know if it's gonna be on the website or if it's gonna be sent out to everybody who is registered.
Yeah.
That, hasn't been discussed yet, but
yeah.
one way or another, it will be somehow available.
Yeah, we will get it online for free sometime. Yeah. I don't know when exactly. Let's see, I think I got everything. Any last questions? Type them in real quick. Oh, I see just a couple of thank yous.
You're welcome. Thank you for taking the time to spend the afternoon with us or morning with us.
Yeah. Oh, and someone is curious if maybe they, in the future, how to extract honey. So maybe that's another one we could do.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's so many videos on YouTube for extraction. Yeah, but we could do that. I mean, I guess we could do that.
Yeah.
It's the least favorite part of beekeeping. But, yeah, we could do that.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Feel free to email us any suggestions or things you're looking for the future.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.